I'm not going to force people to heal from trauma to come together until they're ready. All I can do is share the knowledge and hope that they, can take what they need out of it to move forward and to heal whatever they got going on, so that they can see these similarities better. And I think Native people have always been accepting and innovative when it comes to things. And we realize we can never go back. This land can never go back to the way it was before colonization.
I'm on the record right now as stating without a doubt while yes, there have been advancements. Advancements happen just by being alive. So that in itself is nothing special. Okay. So, right. We are literally dumber as a result of suppressing and, focusing on assimilation versus appreciation. It breaks my heart in so many ways. And to your point, it's great to see that starting to come back. And I know that that's where I got to focus, too, is that healing part, right?
It is. And how can we go forward? That's the biggest thing is how, and I think that's what I focus on and what I want to bring is, how can we as an entire collective people move forward to, better our environment, to better ourselves for 7 generations ahead. Will this land be healed in 7 generations? It depends on what we do now. And that's what I try to tell people, we focus, we keep hearing clean energy and nuclear energy without looking at the waste that nuclear energy is providing. Where's this waste going to go? It never goes away. And just like with fracking, we're tearing apart the inside of the earth. We're actually fracturing it, creating these cracks, and that doesn't heal either. I mean, these things that we're doing, there is no going back from.
Generally speaking, as a perspective, right? Those that were here before colonization understood how the earth already has and its inhabitants are already designed to work in harmony with each other, right? The different birds focus on what they eat and where they sleep and all those other things to support the ecosystem of this animal, of that animal, etc. Right? And so when man starts getting involved and interfering with that natural harmony and rhythm, there is no non-reaction to that. There is absolutely reactions to that. They may not be exact. Or immediate, right? But when you start to mess with that balance, I think we're starting to see more of it, happening today. Unfortunately, it's one of those things that only in hindsight does that argument really ever become kind of, oh, we missed it, because it took 20 years between banging on the drum of climate change versus actually seeing total proof, right? So let's just kind of think about something practical and going back to the coming together. And so let's just say for the white guy like me who was afraid to ask the questions and understand and just goes, okay, I get it. I personally didn't do any crappy things, but people that I was probably related to over time probably did, whatever else. There's no value in getting caught up in the past so much as when it comes to what is involved in healing. What is it that you would want people to do, right? Because let me just say that. What is that you would want people to do? Simple things in their everyday life.
Yeah, I mean, be more mindful of just everything, each other in general, and of themselves and their own truths. To be real and honest about things. I think that's important. So many times, people don't want to look at things in a truthful way, and we get caught up in this world that has been created around us, that we forget that the world needs these things. It needs love. It needs bravery from people, and it needs the wisdom of our ancestors and people today to move it forward. We need all of these things, and that's something for myself that I try to practice and to look at more often. Is okay. Um, of course, we have to take care of ourselves. We have to live in the society that we do live in, but not to the extent of costing it for, and having maybe other people not having or not being able to have that life, or putting these walls up for people, simply based on things that they have absolutely no control over. And just, being more understanding of people. Not There's people that are going to come to you, in a way that is, maybe it comes from true ignorance. They really truly don't know this, and they want to know this knowledge. But just, to come with good intentions, and things that will bring people together and not tear you apart, I think is the biggest thing, that I would like people to kind of take away from this. Is, every little bit helps too.
And so, one of the things that I'm just going to kind of piggyback on one of the things that I misunderstood, and I think a lot of people aren't. One of the things that were not brought up in understanding about your people's culture was how much it was focused on things like self-awareness, self-understanding, spirituality, self-realization, also positive reinforcement, which is like the methods of teaching were very constructive, were very communal, right?
Well, there was a purpose for things. I mean, things had a purpose, and I feel like, even for ourselves, everyone's looking for their purpose and what they're meant to do in this life. And
Right.
it's like, okay, but where are you looking for this purpose? And things that at the end of the day don't matter. Are you going out into nature? Are you going to sit by the water? Are you reflecting into yourself?
There are so many new age things I'll come across that would be packaged as new age or spiritual or religious or I don't know. Anyway,
but it's not new age.
It's so many things that. Well, that's what I was going to say. That they were things that your people knew and practiced long times ago. This is just putting some different lipstick and packaging on the same concepts and principles. And so to that point about there being so much more that brings us together, right? I think if more people understood the beauty of what I don't know, say the beauty of what your people stand for versus maybe what traditional teachings taught us, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then not just the relatability, but also I think the desire to be in a society that operates that way, frankly, right? It was a much more fair and reasonable system, right? There, like you said, right? You're not claiming anything was perfect, right? There's plenty of issues and stuff like that, but I don't want to say there's just a in the way in the world there's just an understanding of how to work with the universe's algorithm that was much more understood and operated with back in the day, that has been lost in time, and that I don't know. I'm trying to think of the right.
But that's that truth. That's the truth.
That's that truth. That's
the
right.
Truth teaching.
Take over.
Yeah, I mean that's what that teaching essentially is. I mean, to know that sun is going to come up and it's going to set, and you have this amount of time in between there, and then we know that it's going to be winter time. The months are getting the sun's out shorter. Like those natural truths of, there's like I always say on the back of that turtle shell with those 13 moons and the 28 days in between each moon. Like there's a truthful and natural order to things. And I think throughout, evolution, and men thinking that, they want to be gods. Essentially, they want to play that role of creating and bringing new things, that we're taking away what we need and the things that we truly need to survive. We're losing that, in place of all these other things that we think that we need. So, I mean, even looking up at the stars, like you see, I mean, like, there's constellation, there's these shapes, there's these, and our ancestors knew all those things. Not only my ancestors, but your ancestors, and people over, Nordic people. And I mean, how do you think they sailed around the world and those sort of things? They all had these natural truths. And I don't want to get too off track with it, but when you get this organized religion, or this idea of, a God, a Virgin Mary, a Jesus, I mean, these type of things, really, I think, try to guide us in a different way than the natural order of the natural laws of things.
Well, I would say that what they've been packaged into, I agree with totally.
Yeah.
What they probably stood for back, what they actually stood for was much more in line with what your teachings, right? But but how it's been weaponized, right? Just because I will.
Yeah, and to control.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Yeah, to control people by not having the ability to navigate for themselves, to not have the ability to feed themselves, to nourish themselves, to truly depend on other things rather than nature and us.
Yeah, and I think that talking about that, right, and the things that combine us, there are many people on this planet that come in all shapes, colors, sizes, and genders that agree that that don't agree with a parasitic approach to Earth, right? There's a segment of the population that is totally, that feels like they're meant to have dominion over people and dominion over Earth and dominion over animals, and they just have right to do what they want over everything, right? But that's not the majority. Right, even though they might be the loudest group, or the ones that maybe that have created laws or otherwise, or systems and things like that, right? But if you really stop and talk and listen, most people want to live in the ways that you talked about, right? And I think, and that's the part of the conversation that's being missed. And I think that there's a bridge, and we'll get into it at a later time with our work together. And speaking of creating bridges, right, where we talk about that. What does it mean to have survival instincts, and what does it mean to still live in harmony with the natural flow when you have things like air conditioning and refrigeration, and how that alters some of that, right? The point is, I want to say that those things are not in conflict with each other, is the bottom line. And I think that humanity just needs to get caught up on how to figure out, understanding how those things are meant to work together in today's society. And I think that that's where a lot of healing and bridges can occur. And so I'm putting us both on the record, as well as stating that when it comes to healing, you and I are both are going to be taking an active role. And I'm thanking you in advance for helping me to figure out how to do a lot of this healing, right? Not just healing amongst, you call it, tribes to tribes, but more importantly, the tribe of humanity. To the biological entity of Earth, right? And understanding that, getting back to that flow and shepherding and working together, and that cooperation, and communal approach versus parasitic. Anyway, I'm just really excited
this
about
idea of
our future work.
Yeah, I mean, take as much as you can, and not give back. Like, that really has to change. And we're seeing that. We're seeing people, I guess at the end of their rope when it comes to certain things in society, and they're like, this has to change. We have to change this. I want people to get that excited about healing themselves and their trauma, their ancestral trauma, and then coming together as a people. I don't really talk too much about, higher vibration, lower vibration, all that kind of stuff, but it really is true. I mean, that's, the gathering of a powwow and getting people together and dancing and you know, in a circle and having that energy flow. And there was something, I the only word I can think that people will identify with is almost magical about it, where it takes you to another place or time sometimes, you know, when you just get into that and you feel that, and it's like it can be done. And it's just coming together and wanting to have a higher vibration for everybody,
And so
not just yourself, but to increase that for the entire world.
let's say let's say for the listeners, and we'll kind of wrap up here because we've gone longer than I wanted to or meant to, because so I appreciate your ability of taking the extra time here. And so we want to, let's say people want to get to experience a powwow for themselves, right? Kind of help to explain what is a powwow and how would somebody know how to find them, and then what are a couple of pieces of etiquette, right? So that to help people feel a little bit more comfortable to walk in there. Just a couple of do's and don'ts.
Yeah, well, anytime you go to a powwow, there are a lot of people taking photos and that sort of thing. To take individual photos of people, typically you're going to want to ask them um, and refer to what they're wearing as regalia. It's not a costume. It's regalia, and to get out there and try. When there's an intertribal, that's for everybody to come out and dance, and they invite everybody to come out and to you know, to feel that drum beat. And it just naturally almost most comes for a lot of people out there. You see these little tiny ones just out there just starting to walk and dance, and it's natural where they start like tapping their feet to that drum beat. And you know, don't be afraid to get out there. That's what it's for. An intertribal is to get out there and to dance. And um, powwows and gatherings is to share. I mean, there's people there selling, you know, different items, all of that. It's meant to be used and shared. That's what it's there for. Um, and to always ask questions. Don't assume things. I think that's one of the worst things is people will assume. Like I said, they assume that you get so many different things because you're Indian, you're Native, you get all these different stuff. But just don't assume
But
things. Just ask.
although I think it's safe to assume that one should not try to wear regalia as a means of fitting in to attend a
Mhm.
powwow.
Right. Yeah, that's not, I mean, you're not going to go to, you know, a Kwanzaa event dressed from head to toe in, you know, African regalia or African clothing, you know. That's just, unless you're invited or you're gifted, that's when you can accept it. And if anyone does question you, then you're able to say, I was gifted this by so and so, or, you know, this was given to me as an honor, or, you know, that's part of your story now, and that's part of your experience.
So people should feel
Nobody can
comfortable
take that
that
from you.
yeah. So people should feel comfortable if they do want to show up to wear what they would normally wear themselves, right?
Yeah.
Be them. They're not trying to right. Cool. I think those little things like that, right, are big barriers for people, right? I don't know, what should I wear? What right? And then all
Yeah. I
of a
mean,
sudden
you don't need to wear an Indian head, or you don't need to, you know,
right.
I mean, that's no, we know who we are. We don't know. We need you to show us. But but yeah, I mean, that stuff is there to buy. I had some woman ask me if it was okay to wear earrings that she had bought at a powwow, and I'm like, yes, that's what it's there for. Now, if you're going around saying, look at these earrings that I made, that's different. You know,
Right.
that's definitely appropriation over appreciating the fact that you know, you saw these beautiful earrings, you wanted to support a native artist, and you bought them. You know, you should be able to wear them and not feel um, like you're appropriating a culture, pretending to be anything. And that's where it comes back to that you know, living in your truth and just being honest. Like, yeah, I bought these, or you know, for me, I always say these are ones that my grandmother actually made. So they're almost 50 years old because they were made before I was even born. Um,
Wow.
but those sort of things. I mean, just always be honest about it, and A Native person is not going to be upset at you for being honest. No one that I've encountered. And if they do, then maybe they need to reflect on their own teachings.
Right, exactly.
I've
Right.
encountered any of that. If you come at something, in a respectful, honorable way, a lot of people, like even when you go to elders, my son was recently asking that they were never given Ojibwe names, and he really wants one. And I have to, find an elder. I have to give them tobacco and ask them, to ask the creator for this name for my son. So there's different things. Like if I was just to come up with a name and say this is what I want, that's not the process, and that's not the way that it's done. It's a gift, and so we even do that ourselves when we seek knowledge from our own. We come to that in a respectful way to seek that knowledge.
So how does so those looking to seek knowledge, right? How do they find if there's some powwows going on? Because like I was shocked I opened up that lid and I asked you to share with me how frequently they're occurring, right? And in different sizes and other things.
Mm-hmm.
And so like is that something that somebody can literally just Google powwows near me, or how would somebody go about taking the first steps of that?
Yeah. Well, my age group, we're all still Facebook people. So that's where I get most of my information is through Facebook, through the different organizations. But a lot of there's one in a few weeks, and that's at a metro park. And a lot of the metro parks will host at least one a year. A lot of the universities and colleges will host one annually as well, because they have a student organization usually, or a population in the area. Detroit, there's over 80 different tribes represented just in Wayne County alone. And so there's a lot of the intertribal powwows and get-togethers. I would say, you can easily just Google powwow in Michigan, powwow in whatever state you're in, and see what comes up. And, it will say that it's open to the public. Almost all of them are. Very rarely, if it's like a homecoming for a certain tribe or they're having ceremony, then it won't be open, but they're not going to advertise that.
Right.
So it probably wouldn't be something you'd encounter. But all powwows are very welcoming. And you do see a lot of people out there just, dancing and just giving it a shot. And yeah, I think everyone should have that experience. At least once or twice, if not many, many times in their life.
Yeah, I would agree. I've enjoyed the few that I've only again been to a few, but each time I always felt very welcome, and there is a certain connectivity that is felt during the various aspects of the drumming, right? Because I know that it serves different purposes along the way. So I'm just trying to use an overall. Anytime that there's some drums going, I definitely felt more connected, I guess is right. And it was honestly, it was impactful. That's what I'm looking for. Right? It was an impactful experience. That's something that is not necessarily I can articulate with words, and I don't know that's something that I could describe with.
But it brings you back to that connection as humans, I think.
That's right. It just brings back to the connection to surroundings, right?
Mm-hmm.
Right. Just connection to the surroundings and connection to being a being of earth versus doing stuff all day long and being busy and occupied with those things. So I want to kind of wrap it up here with, we didn't really talk anything about your professional stuff, and this wasn't meant to be that, but look, you took the time and were kind enough to share knowledge and information with people about and hopefully and I really hope it sparks some people to want to go out and learn more. But if somebody was like, hey, what you talk about or your personality resonates with them, and do you have a chance to please plug your work and what you do and what type of situation or business should would make sense to reach out to you?
Yeah, well, I mean, I consider myself a cultural consultant now. So I, enjoy working with all different ages. I have different programs and workshops, and I can design, for anyone's particular need. But I like to just share the teachings and share the culture. And I have a website, and it's www.awishnabe.com, and that's AWISHINAABE.com. So it's a kind of play on Anishinaabe, because I do wish that everybody embodied those 7 teachings of the Anishinaabe
Right.
way. And I just think it's important, if your company is wanting to have, just a brown bag lunch or a cultural event or anything, that's always something that I can help out with. And I've worked with some schools and changing their mascots, uh, in talking to the community and being that bridge for the community to help them understand as well, why this needs to be changed. And just helping people understand it, I guess, is what I really enjoy doing, is helping people understand um, who we are today, um, what I guess we as a people, an entire people, human race, need to do to ensure that not only for 7 generations for my people, but all people, that this land is available for them to live off. I think
That's
that's
right.
so important. I mean, if just think of, you know, um, our ancestors didn't, learn to harvest corn in a certain way, or, start growing plants in certain ways, what we wouldn't have today. Um, and that the knowledge that would be lost.
For those that are also interested in finding out about history, whether it be the history
Oh,
of they themselves, the history of America, the history of different cultures in America, right?
mhm.
Aside from maybe they want to go deeper or look other than what was taught to them back in school. Look, they're going to encounter the good, the bad, and the ugly. So, what advice would you give somebody to say, look, here's how to go into this and take the good from it, but don't take on the guilt and the shame. That doesn't necessarily have to be part of the program. And I don't mean to put words in your mouth, but that's not what you would want to say.
Yeah.
Don't say that either, right?
Yeah, one of my favorite quotes, and that I use all the time, is when you know better, you do better. So when you do have that knowledge, you have that now. It's not, you can't claim ignorance any longer. Now that you have that, you have to do something about it. And yeah, it's important for all of us to have those connections, um, to your ancestors, to whatever you feel that pull to. Like you said, you really connect with the native culture. So go in there and learn what you can and go directly to the source. A lot of times, that's something that we're starting to do, is tell our stories from our perspective. And unfortunately, part of this American culture is to shape and form us in a way that supports the structure that's ongoing, um, which is the story told by typically not the people that experienced it. So that's what I would say. If you truly want to seek knowledge, of your own history, of Native history, go and try to find authentic, real resources. Is,
Yeah.
is a big thing, because we are starting to tell our stories from our perspective, and it's a lot different than the history and the stories that we were taught throughout school.
Beautiful. And, and I'm just going to piggyback on that to wrap this up by saying, like, this is right in line with, like, I just refuse to believe that this is as good as it gets, right? And so I believe that that part of being a human means having and sharing in that responsibility to keep an open mind and a desire to always know better, to do better, right? To what you said.
Mhm.
And I think I think if we all just accepted that responsibility of ourselves, just whatever that means to each one of us in our own journeys, and right to just know better, to do better. We're going to evolve in the right way. We're going to evolve together, and we're going to heal, and we're going to find, and right. And that's when the magic starts to happen. And so if there's any, I mean, so wrapping this up, going back into history, none of this conversation, right? If you notice this, none of this was about anybody taking on any shame or any guilt. Everything was about what makes us the same, what's the right thing for all of us in living together, and how do we really just want to be and operate as a species. Frankly, right? There's a lot of right, and it's really hard to argue with being kind to each other and being kind to the earth and being kind to all of its inhabitants, and learning how to believe that everybody deserves equal rights to what earth provided for all of us. After all, neither humanity nor animal created earth. Everybody, it was a gift to all. And but you're right. And so that stewardship, right, that you always speak of, is always near and dear to my heart whenever you go down that path. And I just really hope that people were able to have some eyes open and find the similarities, right, and the things that make us similar, and how we're all on the same different journeys. And most importantly, let's not forget let's make sure that we always commit to keeping the humane in the humanity, because we can all look throughout history and see where that's lost. And at some point in time, we just as a species have to say, enough is enough. We're tired of it. And we're all just going to make sure that regardless of whatever happens, we're never going to lose sight of the humane again. And I just keep praying for that day. And so, I know we're going to do our parts of what we can do. And I thank you again for our journeys that we're just going to get started. And hopefully all of you guys listening, listens and continues to be a part of this journey. And thank you for spending your time. Yeah, Jodi, thank you for joining us today. And I wish everybody a fantastic, awesome, and productive and healing week. Take care.